Anybody that does something flagrant to this young lady for what she has brought to the game should be suspended and fined big time. That was Rick Barry sitting alongside George Gervin back in September 2024, finally saying out loud what a massive portion of the basketball world had already been screaming for months. The debate was completely finished regarding whether Caitlin Clark was absorbing heavy hits on the floor. Everyone with a screen had already seen the physical toll. The actual fight had shifted entirely to whether the WNBA was ever going to step in and stop the bleeding. Because when you scroll back through the reality of that rookie season, watching the Chennedy Carter shoulder check, the Dejanai Carrington eye poke, the JC Sheldon flagrant, and the Marina Mabrey shove, you realize the dead ball chaos and late whistles were never isolated accidents. This was a sustained pattern of behavior. Barry did not sound confused during his interview, he sounded genuinely irritated. He labeled the physical treatment reprehensible and then aimed his frustration straight at the league's officiating crew. He demanded they call the damn game according to the actual rulebook. He stated clearly that players were getting away with murder and placed the blame squarely on the officials. That phrasing changed the temperature because Barry refused to frame the violence as some random rookie adjustment period. He framed it as institutional tolerance from the league itself. And Draymond Green spotted the exact same structural failure right after the Chennedy Carter flagrant hit in June. Draymond immediately declared that Indiana better go invest in an enforcer fast. People initially treated it like a joke, but as the season dragged on, Fever fans realized Draymond was essentially pointing out that their superstar lacked any real physical deterrence around her on the floor. Opposing teams started testing those physical boundaries almost instantly during the season. They used hard screens, extra contact, transition bumps, dead ball tension, reach-ins, and shoulder checks to send a message and see exactly how Clark would respond. Draymond understood that historical superstars like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James always had teammates who protected them when opponents started grabbing and holding. Indiana simply did not have that kind of presence early in Caitlin's rookie campaign. The breaking point for the Indiana front office arrived on June 1, 2024, during the game against the Chicago Sky. Chennedy Carter suddenly hip-checked Clark directly to the hardwood before an inbound pass even entered the play. It happened away from the actual basketball action. Officials on the floor originally called it a common foul and refused to even review the play live during the game. That real-time failure made the public backlash explode because viewers instantly felt the referees had lost total control of the floor. Carter then poured gasoline on the fire during the post-game media availability by shutting down questions with the famous line about not answering any Caitlin Clark questions. Fans immediately assumed the worst because Carter refused to explain the controversial collision right after it occurred. Fever general manager Lynn Dunn exploded online following that game. She openly declared, "There is a difference between tough defense and unnecessary targeting actions," demanding the league clean up the crap because that behavior is not who the league is. Dunn did not frame the hit as hard basketball. She explicitly used the word targeting, which shifted the entire conversation away from one foul and turned it into an indictment of league culture. Head coach Christy Sides joined the offensive, posting that the unacceptable fouls on Clark must be acknowledged and demanding to know when the persistent concerns would be addressed. Sides revealed the Fever were continuously submitting these violent plays to the league office, hoping officials would take a closer look at the situations they believed were occurring. Clark herself even broke from her usual diplomacy to call the hit not a basketball play. The WNBA eventually upgraded the contact to a flagrant one upon review, officially confirming the league viewed the contact as unnecessary enough to warrant extra punishment beyond normal physical play. But the emotional damage was already locked in. Fever fans felt validated because their own general manager and head coach publicly demanded the league stop the targeted actions. Even Chennedy Carter eventually tried to walk back the malicious narrative surrounding her viral hip check. In April 2025, Carter claimed the viral clip started in the middle of a chaotic interaction, insisting she had been elbowed and yelled at during previous plays down the court. She described hitting a bucket and then giving Clark a little tap just to say she was there, framing the entire incident as competitive smack talk that simply spiraled out of control. Carter leaned into her identity as an intense competitor, stating it was a play born from the heat of the moment and insisting she had no personal hatred toward Clark. Carter deeply underestimated how the new media environment functioned, assuming a hard foul would live on basketball Twitter for 2 days and disappear like in previous years. Instead, it turned into national discourse instantly because millions of brand-new casual viewers were now watching the WNBA solely for Clark. The visual of the hit away from the ball looked entirely personal, ensuring the isolated camera angle became the permanent public memory of the event while everything before it vanished. Then the math proved the fans were not just seeing ghosts. In September 2024, sports data analyst Connor R. published the Stat Surge analysis revealing Caitlin Clark had absorbed 6 flagrant fouls during the regular season. Out of 35 total flagrant fouls called across the entire WNBA, Clark alone took 6 of them. That meant roughly 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire league landed on one single rookie guard. The analyst used a Poisson process to model the distribution and discovered the probability of this happening randomly was about 1 in $100,000. Once fans heard that specific fraction of a percent chance, they stopped thinking about coincidence and started focusing on structural targeting. 4 of those 6 flagrants originated from Chicago Sky games alone, which instantly amplified the existing tribalism and resentment surrounding those specific matchups. The analyst suggested defenders panic when chasing Clark 30 feet from the basket, creating sloppy recovery contests that turned dangerous. He also noted referees might subconsciously classify contact against Clark as flagrant because they know millions of people are scrutinizing every single whistle involving her. The numbers gave numerical shape to the exact physical reality fans had been watching unfold on television all season. The physical toll only escalated when the playoffs began against the Connecticut Sun. During Game 1, Dejanai Carrington poked Clark directly in the eye. The broadcast replays instantly zoomed in on Carrington's hand making contact, and Clark hit the floor clutching her face. Social media exploded with discussions about fingernails and visible bruising. Yet the officials blew no whistle. The league issued no foul on the floor, no retroactive discipline, no fine, and absolutely no suspension. The WNBA treated the entire sequence as ordinary accidental basketball contact and moved on completely. Clark stayed in the game for all 36 minutes and publicly stated she did not believe the contact was intentional by any means, while Carrington also denied intending any harm. But the image of Clark sitting there with a massive black eye during her first playoff series carried the narrative far beyond official explanations. Fever fans had spent the entire summer complaining about the lack of consistent whistles around Clark, and the Carrington no call dropped straight into that existing frustration. The total absence of punishment became the actual controversy because the visual evidence of the bruise completely disconnected from the official league response. Fans were already carrying heavy emotional baggage regarding the Connecticut Sun because of what happened on August 28, 2024. During that third quarter, Clark was chasing a player through traffic when Alyssa Thomas planted firmly and used her right shoulder to set a hard screen that completely flattened Clark to the court. Officials called a common offensive foul instead of reviewing the play for hostile contact. Fans instantly merged the Thomas collision with the Chennedy Carter hip check and the later Carrington eye poke, stacking the clips together until they saw a continuing story of aggression. Thomas defended the play by stating she was just trying to set a normal screen and wasn't attempting to hurt anybody. But the visual of Clark getting leveled mattered infinitely more to the audience than the technical basketball explanation. Clark responded by getting back up and sticking her tongue out while walking down the court, projecting a tough, unfazed demeanor that only made her supporters more fiercely protective of her. The environment grew so hostile that even the Angel Reese rivalry games became distorted by the intense media focus. On June 1st, Clark actually committed a hard foul against Reese during a layup attempt, chopping down hard across Reese's arm and knocking her to the floor. The referees reviewed the sequence and upgraded the play to a flagrant 1, which marked the first flagrant foul of Clark's WNBA career. Reese reacted emotionally, jumping up and yelling toward Clark, while Aaliyah Boston had to step between them to prevent further escalation. The refs handed out offsetting technical fouls to Reese and Boston. The internet memory completely mutated the sequence later on, with large segments of fans falsely claiming Reese had been fined specifically for reacting to Clark or for clapping after the play. The WNBA actually fined Reese $1,000 because she skipped her mandatory post-game media obligations, and the Sky organization received a $5,000 penalty for the compliance failure. Reese herself later dismissed the on-court collision entirely, calling it a basketball play, confirming the refs got it right, and telling everyone to move on. She even stated they were friends away from the court, and the trash talk was not personal. The audience refused to move on because the players had morphed into massive cultural symbols, causing fans to interpret every single interaction through their existing tribal loyalties. This relentless physical gauntlet eventually forced Lisa Bluder to speak out in June 2025. When asked about the treatment, Bluder stated that Clark takes everybody's best shot night after night. Bluder, who coached Clark every single day in college, understood exactly how opponents eventually decide they would rather disrupt her rhythm physically than try to guard her immense skill cleanly. She pointed out that the current WNBA rules and officiating structure actively allow defenders to grab, bump, and hip check Clark constantly. Bluder demanded more freedom of movement in the game, essentially arguing that defenders get away with too much holding before the referees finally intervene. She told the league to call more fouls because players will always adjust their behavior if the officials actually enforce the rules consistently. If moving screens and hand-checking get punished, the defense cleans up. Bluder escalated the conversation by demanding financial punishments that truly hurt. She argued that organizations themselves should face heavy fines because that is the only way institutional behavior changes on the floor. That specific demand acted like gasoline on the WNBA discourse because fans immediately connected it directly to the targeting narrative. Bluder argued that defenders firmly believe they can rough up the league's biggest star because the current officiating environment actively rewards them for testing that physical boundary. The league finds itself completely trapped because every single nationally televised Fever game now functions as a live referendum on how the WNBA handles contact around its absolute biggest draw. The physical violence and the league's silence eventually forced the Fever roster to change its own emotional temperature. Fans desperately wanted to know who was going to protect Caitlin and change the emotional dynamics of these games. Sophie Cunningham eventually stepped into the enforcer void that Draymond Green had predicted. When Cunningham visibly embraced the protector role, stating that if they were not going to protect their star, then someone else had to, the quote hit Fever fans perfectly. It validated the audience's deep fear that the officials were failing, forcibly shifting the burden of protection onto the teammates themselves. Every hard foul response from Cunningham generated massive cheers because it felt like symbolic resistance against the league's refusal to blow the whistle. When teammates have to escalate the physicality just to keep their superstar safe, the retaliatory culture grows rapidly. Rick Barry saw a league letting excessive contact slide right by. Draymond Green saw a generational talent operating without enough deterrence. Indiana fans watched their rookie absorb relentless tests while carrying the financial growth of the entire sport. Are we supposed to believe 17% of all flagrants landing on one guard is just normal basketball? Or is the league actively refusing to protect the player paying their bills? Caitlin takes the floor again on Wednesday. McAfee goes live Tuesday morning. The Fever and Sparks tip off at 10:30 ET. If the refs swallow the whistle on those first few drives, Indiana fans will know the exact same pattern is still running the league.